These are the deadliest rides in history. So the Haunted Castle was a ride at Six Flags Great Adventure in which a fire broke out because the entire castle was made of combustible materials and lacked smoke detectors and sprinklers. 8 teenagers lost their lives, making it the deadliest in U.S. amusement park history in 1984. The Big Dipper in the UK was a roller coaster in the 1970s, responsible for the worst roller coaster disaster in history, in which 5 people died and 13 others seriously injured after the lift cable snapped as the train was at the top of the climb. The emergency brake also failed, causing the train to roll backwards and derail, crashing into one of the other cars. Verrückt Water Slide in Kansas was the tallest water slide in the world at that point and was responsible for the decapitation of a young boy who flew off and struck the metal safety. They closed the park 1 year afterwards in 2018. Mindbender was a ride in the West Edmonton Mall in Canada that was the world's largest indoor triple loop roller coaster, but in 1986 the train derailed thanks to missing bolts, leading to wheels flying off mid-ride around a turn, ejecting 3 passengers who ultimately passed away. And finally, Derby Racer was responsible for up to 5 total deaths because of riders routinely standing up and jumping between moving cars, with employees even betting on it at one point because of the frequency. That's crazy. These are the most dangerous movie stunts in history. So Buster Keaton in Steamboat Bill Jr. did a stunt in which a full 2-ton building facade fell around him, missing by inches. There was no padding and it was just one take. If he was 1 inch off, it would have been fatal. In the movie Cliffhanger, there's a scene in which stuntman Simon Crane had to zip line between 2 jets at an altitude of 15,000 feet. The temperature at the height was negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and he was just feet away from being sucked into the jet engine. He was actually paid $1 million for this single stunt, which is deserved. In the movie Who Am I, Jackie Chan slides down the side of a 21-story building with no safety wires or nets. He was using his hands and feet as brakes to control his speed, but at one point he almost even fell off, but repositioned in time to save him from a 200-foot fall. Speaking of falls, Dar Robinson performed a stunt for Sharky's Machine in which he performed a 220-foot free fall backwards out of a window in Atlanta without wires, giving him the record. And before CGI, stuntman Ross Kananga ran across the back of 5 live crocodiles in a swamp in this scene, and on the 4th take he actually got bit by one of them. And finally, Tom Cruise did a real halo jump from 25,000 feet for Fallout, on top of all the other crazy Mission Impossible stunts he did. These are names that are making a comeback, so if you have these, you're trendy again. So certain vintage names that were popular in the early 1900s, like Arthur, Felix, and August for boys, and Violet, Hazel, and Florence for girls are coming back. Boyish nicknames for girls are coming back, with names like Andy, Stevie, Dylan, and Scotty re-emerging in new census data, as are historical literature names like Ophelia, Reese, and Cassian. Names from ancient civilizations like Olympia, Aurelian, and Linus are making a comeback as parents want their child to sound like a leader, and old showgirl names like Marilyn, Farrah, and Roxy are coming back to embrace stardom and grit. Certain names that peaked in the 90s like Evan, Ryan, Jack, and Luke for boys, and Emily, Hannah, Sarah, and Katie for girls have become hot again, as have really short names like Max, Noah, James, and Ezra for boys, and May, Ella, Ava, and Mia for girls. Cultural names are making a comeback, specifically those ending in vowels like Mateo, Luca, Sophia, Isabella, and Antonio, as are old money names too, with Sebastian, Alexander, Harrison, and Charles for boys, and Charlotte, Elizabeth, Margaret, and Catherine for girls. But the number one name making a comeback by far is actually Theodore, going from a grandpa name to a top 5 name in just a matter of a few years. I wonder why. I visited Mr. Beast's theme park. So Mr. Beast created a pop-up theme park called Beastland that I figured I had to try before it disappeared, and so I went to visit to see what it's really like. When you walk in, there's a massive Mr. Beast logo head at the entrance, and then upon entering the park, you're met with a vast park with boardwalk games, rides, restaurants, and even unique Mr. Beast challenges to participate in. I ended up playing a milk carton game first, in which you could win Mr. Beast themed plushies. Unfortunately, I lost, before ultimately heading over to the challenge arena, where you compete in these pretty basic games to accrue points, and if you win, you could cash in those points for prizes on this massive prize wall similar to a Dave & Buster's. Now, I didn't go on any rides, but there's no shortage of large roller coasters, which kind of surprised me, so if you do like rides, it's pretty decent for that. I did play some other Mr. Beast challenges, though, that are molded after his videos, like the zipline target game, and then this pretty crazy catapult game. After getting a quick bite at one of the maybe 20 food stands, I went into a few shops, including a Mr. Beast themed shop where he sells his merch, and then at the end of every night, they announce the winner of the day based on who has the most points, and they give them a cash prize, and so in total, I have to say, it was a pretty good time, and I'm sure it's going to be coming to the US soon. Very cool. Let's try to guess the prices of these kids' toys. It's been a while. What is this? The Miko 3 AI robot? Is that what kids play with now? I mean, it's a robot, so it's probably a bit more premium. I can see like $90. I don't even know what this does. $139. Okay. Barbie Dream House. These things used to slap. Probably over like $200 though now, right? They're pretty decked out. Maybe $250. $125. Not a bad deal. Nintendo Switch is $500. That's like burned into my head at this point. Oh, okay. $449. Nice. Must be a sale. The PS5 Pro is even more expensive. Maybe like $600 at this point. $650. Yep. That's actually insane. Bitsy Hamster. What's that? Looks cute, but can't be too expensive. Maybe like $20. Spot on. $26. Okay. Lego Bluey House. So Barbie was $125. This is probably half, maybe like $75. Looks cool. $56. All right, there we go. And then the Millennium Falcon Lego set. Wow, that thing's crazy. I feel like that's like a collector's item, so maybe like over $1,000. $849. Expensive. How long can you talk to customer service before they hang up? Starting with Amazon, I gave them a call about returning an item and started asking them questions regarding refund methods, how to physically return the item, and what their favorite item was. They actually indulged me for 8 minutes and 17 seconds before disconnecting, which I thought was interesting. From here, I tried Apple, and I was speaking to a rep named Melissa about trade-in policies and asking questions about their AirPods, and she was pretty good with answering all my questions, but eventually noted the call volume would require me to re-enter the queue for additional product questions. Microsoft was next, and this was short-lived because after answering my first question regarding my PC, I was told to transfer to somebody else because my questions were no longer applicable to the rep's department. So afterwards, I called DoorDash because I actually needed to resolve something with them, and they were great, having talked to me for 15 minutes and 3 seconds despite solving my initial question after just 5 minutes. And then it was time for Walmart, where I spoke to a customer service representative named Jen, and I was asking her about available inventory and started talking about the holidays, and she must have had all day because I was on the phone with her for 23 minutes and 8 seconds before I actually ran out of things to say, making Walmart the clear winner. So now you know, and Merry Christmas, Jen. Here are some places that will pay you to live there. So many regions in Italy like Sardinia, Calabria, and Sicily will pay people up to 30,000 euro in the form of a housing rebate if you transfer your official residency there, as they're fighting depopulation. Alban in Switzerland is offering $25,000 per adult and $10,000 per child to live there, but you must stay 10 years and build or buy property to access it. Remote workers in Tulsa, Oklahoma are offered $10,000 if you live there for 1 year. In West Virginia offered $12,000, and in Topeka, Kansas offered up to $15,000 if you buy a home as a remote worker. In Ireland, you'll get paid up to $90,000 to move to an offshore island and renovate a vacant home that was built before 1993, basically offering free renovations. A Greek island called the Antikythera Island is offering free housing and $500 monthly stipends to young families to move in, as it only currently has 30 people living there and they want to insure it against extinction. And finally, the best pay-to-move incentive in the entire world likely belongs to Chile, where established companies can receive up to $80,000 in equity grants if you're there for 12 months in one of their accelerator programs. Might be worth it for some people. I let AI order for me at every drive-thru. Pulling up to McDonald's first, I prompted AI with this: I'm at the McDonald's drive-thru, give me one item I should get.
Ooh, classic McDonald's run. I'd say go for the McCrispy.
And after placing the order, I got my McCrispy, which I've never actually had before, and not sure why I chose that, but this was surprisingly one of the best items I've ever had at McDonald's, so good choice. From here, I repeated this at Dunkin', and it continued its hipster orders, this time with a chicken and roasted pepper wrap, which I've actually had before and I do quite enjoy, so also happy here. At Taco Bell, I had a bit of a standoff because I encountered an AI drive-thru window, so we had robot-on-robot communication, and my AI asked about new items and ended up getting me a steak and poblano rolled quesadilla, which I'm not sure how I never heard of before, but this thing was absolute fire. It wasn't all home runs though, because at Popeyes, it managed to just order me a single biscuit, and then at Burger King, it ordered me a Cheeseburger King Jr. meal, though I will say the kids meal did come with a Sonic toy, so I was quite happy about that. And then I ended things at Wendy's, and I think my AI realized I was eating unhealthy all day because it decided to order for me an apple pecan salad, which was a wise decision in retrospect, so thank you, AI. How much money do you gift for these things? I mean, it depends how close they are to me, but I feel like wedding is into the hundreds. I'd probably give a good friend like a few hundred or so, family more. I'd say the average though is probably like in the low hundreds, maybe like 150. Wow, spot on. Graduation, I feel, is less special because you do it like, what, 4 times between middle school, high school, college, than anything else. So it's probably like 75 or so, maybe 100. Wow, 50, okay, less than I thought. Is a birthday even like a cash event? I feel like this is present or bust. Maybe like 100 also. $30, jeez, okay, that feels a little low. Funerals, I don't think I've ever given a gift at a funeral. I guess that makes sense though, right? I mean, funerals are celebrations of life, so it's kind of warranted. I don't know, like 100? 75, okay. I've never been to a bar mitzvah, never even invited actually, but it feels like a 50 to 100 type of event. 100, yeah, higher side. And then quinceañera, I've never been to one, but that's the 15th birthday celebration, right? So maybe like 100 or so. Yeah, okay. How much money do you really save buying generic products versus brand products? Well, I went to Walmart to figure this out and started off with Frosted Flakes versus these Great Value Frosted Flakes with a polar bear mascot, and these were priced at $4.98 and $3.47 respectively. Next up was Oreos versus Twist and Shouts, which I've never heard of, but the generic brand was much cheaper at $2.97 instead of $3.96, as expected. Milk may have had the largest disparity, with generic milk coming in at $4.48 and branded milk priced at $9.97, more than double. Next, I compared Lunchly versus Snack Builders, and Lunchly was 3 times more expensive at $4.76 versus the $1.50 for generic, though they did have this new barbecue chicken flavor that was pretty tempting to buy, but I didn't. After this, I checked out chicken thighs, and they were pretty close, being $3.47 per pound for generic and $3.97 per pound for Purdue branded, and Great Value ice cream was $2.97 per pint, while Breyers was $3.87 per pint. I ended our shopping by looking at a generic chocolate bar, which was $2.44 to Hershey's $2.97 for a similarly sized bar, which means in total, generic brands were significantly cheaper, saving a total of $13.18 for the 7 items, or 40% cheaper overall. These are days that never actually happened. So 11 days in September September 1752 never happened because Britain switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, and in order to sync up the timelines, they deleted September 2nd to September 14th, meaning the month looked like this. While February 29th happens every 4 years, February 30th has never happened, besides one time in Sweden, when they were also adjusting to the Gregorian calendar, but they took a different approach and added 2 leap days in 1712, making it the rarest day in history. France technically lost 13 years at the end of the 1700s when they implemented the Republican calendar, which included 10-day-long weeks and standardized 30-day months. Therefore, years 1793 to 1806 were not recorded standardly. From 1929 to 1940, the Soviet Union had no weekends because of Stalin's 5-day continuous work week and the 6-day week, which restructured the Sunday to Sunday concept that the rest of the world was on. Ethiopia is currently in the year 2018 since its calendar has an extra month, putting it about 8 years behind the rest of the world. And finally, parts of Kiribati never experienced December 31st, 1994 because of a dateline change that threw certain time zones a full day forward, meaning no New Year's Eve for these unfortunate civilians living there. Pretty cool, right? What is the weirdest food I could find in a gas station? Starting off with Shell, and when I went into their mart, I found chicken and waffle flavored protein chips, which sounded intriguing, and upon trying them, they were legitimately some of the best protein chips I've had. Also while there, I saw a cosmic brownie ice cream, which I've never seen before, so I had to buy that, and this was also surprisingly good and tasted just like the Little Debbie's brownie. From here, I went to a BP mart, and it was here where I found a lobster noodle pot, which felt weird, but right next to it was a box of boogers, which intrigued me, so I decided to get those and try them, and I usually like sour candy, but these definitely weren't my favorite. At 7-Eleven, I found Mr. Beast beef jerky, which I've never seen before, and so I decided to purchase that. I unpacked it, gave it a taste, and I was quite surprised with how good it was, tasting exactly like a mini Slim Jim. At Wawa, I came across a street corn Mexican popcorn, which was pretty unique, but I figured I could do myself one better, and I found a rabbit stick dog treat, and I knew I had to try that, but unfortunately, it was nearly impossible to bite into because I'm not a dog. And finally, I ended things at Circle K, and it was here where I came across a cocktail basil seed drink, and I knew I had to try that. And when I got home and inspected it, I didn't expect to like it, but it turned out to be much better than expected. What fast food items have the most calories? Starting off with McDonald's, which was surprisingly the double quarter pound with cheese, which was only 740 calories. I didn't really love this though, since McDonald's burgers are pretty mid. And at Arby's, we have their half pound beef and cheddar, which is their highest calorie menu item, also at 740 calories. And this was absolutely disgusting and not worth eating at all. Dunkin's highest calorie menu item isn't actually a food, but rather a drink in the form of their frozen caramel cream coffee, which had 1,120 calories and tasted pretty solid. And Taco Bell's highest calorie item was their grande nachos with seasoned beef for 1120 as well, and these were surprisingly very good. Going up from here, we have Popeye's signature hot bone-in wings, which was 1150 calories, and I have to say I would take down 50 of these. They were very worth it. Wendy's comes next with their Big Bacon Classic Triple at 1200 calories, which was good, but I was getting burger fatigue at this point, which is the same story for Burger King, whose Bacon King Burger at 1200 calories is their highest. I didn't hate it though. But the fast food item with the most calories was by far KFC's chocolate chip cake, which was absolutely huge and claims to be 1800 calories, which is basically just a full day of eating. So now you know. What happens if you leave free food in a public area? Starting off basic with a McDonald's hamburger, I placed it on this public park bench and waited 10 minutes to see if anybody would grab it, and despite a few people looking at it, nobody ultimately took it. And so I increased the stakes now, offering a fresh Chipotle bowl and put it right where the burger previously was, waited another 10 minutes, but nobody besides the birds and the bugs were giving it any notice. And so it was time for level 3, which was an entire bucket of KFC, the highest valued item yet, and I was surprised that not even a single person looked at this despite many walking by, although there was a dog that sniffed it, but ultimately he was pulled away. Level 4 was now an entire Domino's pizza, and I thought for sure this would go because who wouldn't want a free pizza? And I finally got somebody who I thought was going to take the food as he sat right next to it and started looking at it, but ultimately he didn't pick it up and the pizza remained untouched. And now at this point it's been about an hour, but I figured time for level 5 I'd bring out the final goodie, which is a dozen of donuts from Dunkin', and I planted them on the bench with a small crack to entice with aroma, and after 20 minutes passed, not a single person took it. So I ended up just giving away all the food because challenge failed. However, New Jersey people are very respectful. These are unsolved mysteries that will never be solved. So in 1977, astronomers picked up an unknown 72-second radio signal from space, and it was never repeated, leading scientists to believe that it could have been the one and only attempt by aliens to contact us. The dancing plague of 1518 involved a group of French people who would dance uncontrollably for days, sometimes to physical exhaustion with no clear medical explanation to this day. The Max Headroom incident in 1987 involved a mysterious masked man hijacking television stations and speaking nonsense into the camera with bizarre footage. A coded sculpture outside of the CIA headquarters called the Cryptos contains 4 encrypted passages, and nobody to this day has been able to solve the final one. The Tunguska event, which is the largest impact explosion event on Earth in recorded history, at 1,000 times bigger than the Hiroshima bomb, destroyed 80 million trees in Siberia in 1908, but scientists can't confirm whether it was a meteor or something totally different because there was no crater or meteor rocks anywhere. And finally, the Amelia Earhart disappearance remains a mystery to this day, as she flew around the Pacific in 1937, only to vanish without a trace of her plane or body ever to be found. So who knows what happened? What is the worst YouTube video of all time? So the video video with the most dislikes is Baby Shark with 21 million dislikes, though that's just a function of it having 16 billion views, and actually only has a 30% dislike rate, meaning that it's not unanimously hated. In contrast, YouTube Rewind 2018 has 20 million dislikes, but an 87% dislike rate, meaning that it's proportionally more disliked. But it gets even worse than this because the Sadak 2 trailer has a 92% dislike rate, which is the highest for any video above 20 million views. If we're talking the worst in terms of quality, there's a video titled 4th of July by the account Undifferentiable in 2005 that is the worst honest attempt at uploading a video ever on the platform, with it looking like this. If we're talking about the worst in terms of substance, the shortest video would qualify as the worst, which means that I actually technically have the worst video on YouTube because I have the shortest video that is only 17 frames long. If we're talking about the worst video in terms of gruesomeness, there's a lot on there that I can't allude to, but I'm sure you've seen a couple of them. But literally speaking, this is the worst YouTube video of all time because that's the actual title of this video. What's there more of in the world? So let's see how good our estimation skills are. I feel like this has to be hospitals. They're so much more necessary for like a majority of people. I know there's like tens of thousands of airports though, so I guess it could be close. Oh wow, yeah, 200,000 hospitals is insane. Still a lot of airports though. Prisons or museums? Good question. My gut says museums because they're like pretty prevalent in major cities, but prisons, they're like fairly spread out, right? So let's go museums here. Nice. All right, actually close. Wow, 20,000 prisons, okay. Schools or libraries? Well, assuming school is just like any level of schooling, then definitely that. I feel like every school has a library as well, right? It's a school. 4.5 million schools in the world. I mean, it makes sense. Everybody goes to school, basically. And then churches or gas stations? I mean, every country won't have a lot of churches if you're like Muslim majority, or like China and India with Hinduism and Buddhism. So definitely gas stations, right? That's in every country. 3 million churches and only 1.3 million gas stations? Wow. Okay. I tested dead places at their busiest hour. Starting with Mattress Firm, which typically has an average of 3 people in their store at any given time. I went during its peak hour, which according to Google was 6 p.m. after people get off of work. I was definitely skeptical of it being busy whatsoever because I've never seen a Mattress Firm busy, but I ended up being wrong because there were 6 people in this store. Still not a lot, but double of the usual. After this, I tried Boston Market, a home-cooked meal-style restaurant that once had 1,200 locations and now just 17. Lunchtime at 1 p.m. is considered their busiest hour, and despite this place typically being a ghost zone, there were probably 4 people in the store, which, all things considered, is pretty busy. Men's Warehouse was next, which typically has 5 people in a store at any given time. I went during their peak hour at 12 o'clock, and there was probably 6 or 7 people in the store. I went to a dead mall next, and their busiest hour, according to Google, was 6 p.m. This mall wasn't only completely dead, but there were literally 0 people in there because they're in the process of closing, so didn't really feel much of a difference. And then I ended things by going to stores like Floor & Decor and Staples, which typically don't have a lot of people in them, but at their peak hour, they ended up each having about 30 people in them, so it shows that even dead places can be busy at their busiest hour. These are people who are famous, but don't actually feel famous, so let's see if we agree. Jason Derulo. Wow, that's so true. He probably has more hits than basically everybody's favorite artist, but he's never talked about. He could easily do a Super Bowl. Shout out to Jason Derulo, man. Yeah, Pitbull's kind of in that camp too. I'd agree. Same sort of thing where like nobody really talks about him, but he's one of the GOATs. I don't think he's ever missed with a song, but I like never see him at events or like discussed on social media. No, I think Vin Diesel gets his flowers. He's definitely like a bit more incognito, I guess, than other celebrities, but he's also not like super famous. He only has like one big movie franchise. Flo Rida was never as big as some of these other people. He's definitely famous, but I feel like he's the right amount of famous relative to his influence. Jason Derulo, on the other hand, he should be like Justin Bieber level fame. Maroon 5? I mean, Adam Levine's pretty famous. I guess in terms of the band, though, yeah, like I don't know a single other person. I think with them, though, they're nobody's favorite band, but they have enough hits where they're still relevant, so it's kind of interesting. And Avatar? What? I mean, I've never met an Avatar fan, to be fair, so I don't know how it's like super popular, even though I saw the recent movie 6 times in a row for some reason. These are the hardest scenes ever filmed. So in Spider-Man, the scene where Peter Parker catches Mary Jane and her entire lunch tray in the cafeteria contains 0 CGI and was actually done practically. It took 156 takes for Tobey Maguire to catch all the items in a perfect sequence and took an entire day just to film that 5-second clip. The Halo jump from Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible Fallout took 106 jumps to get the perfect shot, with Tom Cruise doing this for months since there was only a 3-minute window each day to do it. In The Shining, the baseball bat staircase scene was done by Shelley Duvall 127 times. The director wanted her to feel genuine fear, and she actually ended up losing some hair after the 100th attempt because of the stress. The D-Day landing scene in Saving Private Ryan cost $12 million and had 1,500 extras, taking 4 weeks to shoot. Steven Spielberg wanted total realism for it, which made things nearly impossible. The TV show Adolescence was shot in one continuous shot with no hidden cuts, so if an actor messed up 50 minutes in, for instance, the entire episode had to be reshot. And finally, the chariot race from Ben-Hur took 9 months to film, 15,000 extras, and cost $50 million making it the craziest scene to film in history. That's crazy. These are the deadliest video games. So in 2017, two guys were 1v1ing in Call of Duty when the loser decided to swat the other player. Unfortunately though, the address was wrong and the cops pulled up on a random person who had no idea what was going on and they killed him for not cooperating. A man named Chris Staniforth died after playing Halo for 12 hours straight thanks to a blood clot in his leg. Worse than this though was a Taiwanese man named Cheng Rong Yu who was playing League of Legends for 23 hours straight without sleep before collapsing and dying. And then also a Korean man named Kim Kung Jae who died after playing Mew for 86 hours straight without sleep or food. In 2003, an Alabama man committed Grand Theft Auto in real life, killing 3 people and stealing a car, stating, "Life is like GTA, everybody's gotta die sometime." A 16-year-old named Daniel Petrick killed his mom and almost killed his dad because they took away his Halo 3 disc. This is similar to a 10-year-old boy who killed his mother after she refused to buy him a VR headset on Amazon, and then he ended up taking her Amazon password afterward and buying it for himself. And finally, an arcade game from the 80s called Polybius apparently caused everyone who played it to experience seizures, amnesia, night terrors, and some people even death, with the psychological aspect being so bad that they had to ban it forever. That's crazy. This is what $1 million houses look like around the world. So in New York City, $1 million will get you a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment depending on the exact area. In London, you can stretch things a bit further with high-end finishes but equal limited space. In the suburbs of the Midwest though, you can expect a 4-bedroom, 4,000 square foot home complete with multiple garages and a big backyard in a nice neighborhood. In the suburbs of Canada, you can get a roughly 30% larger home than in the US because home prices are relatively cheaper there. And in Mexico, you're looking at an ultra high-end 7,500 square foot property with high-grade security and lavishness. In Tokyo, you can get a multi-level family home living in the outskirts for that amount, while in Dubai, you can get a modern 2-bedroom high-rise spot with amenities. In Nigeria, you can get a 10,000 square foot, 10-plus bedroom and an entire gated compound, putting you at the top 0.1% of homeowners, while in Monaco, $1 million will get you a really small studio apartment or maybe even just a parking space depending on precise location. And finally, in Madagascar, land can be found for as little as $100 per acre in some areas, so you can theoretically buy 10,000 acres there with $1 million, which would tank the market and make you a literal landlord. These are the worst apologies of all time. So celebrity chef Mario Batali was accused of sexual harassment and decided to apologize in one of his newsletters, in which below it he added his recipe for pizza dough cinnamon rolls for readers to make over the holidays. YouTubers notoriously have bad apologies, like Colleen Ballinger, who apologized for her inappropriate interactions with minors by uploading a 10-minute video singing while playing a ukulele. Logan Paul, prior to making his infamous apology video, actually originally released a written statement on Twitter in which he said that he didn't do it for the views because he gets views, which was heavily scrutinized by people. Travis Scott apologized for the deadly Astroworld tragedy in 2021, which resulted in 10 people dying, by posting an Instagram story in black and white, performatively rubbing his forehead and seemingly not caring. The CEO of BP, Tony Hayward, apologized for the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, the largest oil spill in history, which killed 11 people and destroyed the Gulf Coast, by saying that he wants his life back and was bothered by all the attention he was getting over their mistake. And finally, Justin Timberlake waited over 15 years to formally apologize to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson for the infamous Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction, and did it through a Notes app apology. I tested AI survival products. Starting with a $1,000 offline AI survival kit called the Ark, it has a chatbot contained within it that can help you answer any survival question, like what berries you can eat, how to properly hunt an animal, and what to do if the weather turns on you. It's also waterproof and drop proof, so that's pretty cool. Next, I bought a $3,000 drone that's able to use AI tracking software to locate you if you're lost, as well as the capability to attach things to it for rescue missions in case you need to be brought food. You're even able to fish with it, though not successfully. I bought a Starlink next, which promises to give you Wi-Fi in basically any situation, including the wilderness. I was skeptical that this would work, but it actually did, giving me solid download speed thanks to their satellite connection. I next purchased an AI water purification pen, which uses ultraviolet light to purify any water, including still lake water. I was a little bit skeptical of this as well, but it actually ended up working. I also tried a life straw, which let me drink directly out of the lake using its filtration system, and that felt strange, but that also worked too. And then the final product I got was a bio stove, which promises to transfer the heat of a fire to make electricity. And while I didn't think that I'd ever be able to charge my phone using sticks and rocks, I was wrong. These are serial killers that are still out there, so be careful. So at any given point, there's about 50 active serial killers in the United States, with some specific ones being the I-70 killer, responsible for killing lone employees in specialty shops across the Midwest. He remains at large and is likely in his 50s at this point, still living among us. The Chicago Strangler, who murdered over 50 women since 2001, is still out there, apparently still doing it, as is the Little Rock, Arkansas serial stabber from 2020, who's yet to be captured. The West Mesa bone collector, who buried the remains of 11 women in New Mexico in 2009, has yet to be caught, marking them at large. And this is the same story of the Long Island killer, responsible for 11 bodies recovered near a beach, and an Edgecombe, North Carolina killer in 2009 also, who killed 11 people as well. In other parts of the world, Pedro Lopez, known as the Monster of the Andes, confessed to over 300 murders across South America and was sentenced to a mental institution in the 90s. However, upon his release in 1998, he hasn't been tracked down, meaning he's about 75 years old and still out there to this day. And finally, the Zodiac killer, who's responsible for at least 5 deaths, but as many as 35, has never been caught and is still technically out there to this day, though likely in his 80s at this point. So stay safe. Here are some crazy things that will happen in our lifetime lifetime. So by 2035, a permanent human presence will be established on the moon thanks to the Artemis base camp currently being built by NASA for extended human stays. By 2045, we'll have sequenced the DNA of every major animal species, allowing us to take a pivotal step towards reviving extinct animals. By 2050, more than half of the world's population will live in just 3 countries, China, India, and Nigeria, and we'll also likely see at least 3 countries disappear. In 2060, the life expectancy in developed nations will jump up to 100 years as medical advancements take place and anti-aging therapies are adopted. This includes the eradication of cancer, which is projected by 2055. By 2070, designing your babies through CRISPR technology and gene editing will become commonplace and affordable, leading to the disease-proof generations to follow and enhancements for strength and intelligence. By 2080, we're expected to have both underground and floating cities built that will host hundreds of thousands of people to combat surface conditions. And by 2100, if you're still here, you're expected to see digital immortality, which is just AI copies of people and their memories, allowing their personalities to live on infinitely even when their body dies. I asked AI to predict everything, and here's what it said. So the next president of the United States is likely going to be J.D. Vance over Gavin Newsom, and the winner of the World Cup is going to be Spain over France. The first trillionaire is going to be Elon Musk on December 26th of this year once SpaceX does its IPO, and the first company to be worth $10 trillion will be Nvidia in 2029 once it begins creating robots for the government, expanding their contract sizes. AI predicts GTA 6 will be delayed again and officially released on March 16th, 2027, and phones are expected to become obsolete by 2030 in favor of wearables like glasses. The first human to live to 150 is actually alive today and is likely 30 years old, meaning that by 2146 they'll hit that mark thanks to our progress in epigenetics, though apparently by 2070 we'll reach biological immortality, making living forever a choice. World War III is expected to start on November 21st, 2030, with the starter event being something around the Taiwan conflict, and apparently through a SpaceX colony program, the first human is expected to be born on Mars by 2054. And lastly, the next major social media platform to die will be Instagram by 2028, ironically because of AI content flooding the platform. Here's the most optimal daily routine. So 7 a.m. is considered the ideal wake-up time to get sunlight in without the risk of sunburn. You also set up your melatonin production for 16 hours later at night. Around 7:30 a.m. and you should begin to hydrate, and at 8 a.m. you should do low-intensity movement like a walk to signal to your brain that the day has begun. 9 a.m. is when you should have your first meal, focusing on proteins and healthy fats, and if you're a coffee drinker, 2 hours after wake-up is considered ideal for your first dosage. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. should be for any deep cognitive work as it's considered peak focus, and afterwards at 1 p.m. you should have a protein-rich lunch to avoid an afternoon slump. At 2 p.m. you should get more sunlight to trigger productivity and then continue working on until 4:30 p.m. 5 p.m. is considered the optimal exercise window because grip strength and reaction time is maximized here. 6 p.m. is optimal dinner time, and for this you can have a fairly balanced meal with less restriction. You can ease down at this point and spend the next 3 hours just relaxing into the night. 10 p.m. is ideal for your warm shower to trigger a body temperature drop, which helps prepare for sleep. And then ideal bedtime is at 11 p.m. where you should aim for a dark, cool room with no screens to optimize for a complete 8-hour rest. Is this your routine? These are crimes that were solved by children. So a Canadian boy named Max Warenko was swimming around a lake in British Columbia when he used a GoPro camera to investigate a submerged vehicle that ended up being identified as belonging to a woman who was missing for 27 years. A German boy witnessed a hit and run while in the car with his mom and had a drawing pad with him at the time, of which he perfectly sketched out the entire truck and the man driving it with all identifiable details, later leading to the criminal's arrest. Similarly, a young girl that was being abused would draw a monster every night on her sketch pad, and while seemingly harmless to the parents, ended up being key for identifying the abusers because she would draw specific body markings that aligned with the perpetrators. A helicopter in England was out looking for 2 criminals on foot, and after a group of 30 kids noticed the 2 men, they laid on the ground and formed a giant arrow which directed the helicopter properly and led to their arrests. Though more impressive than this is a 13-year-old cybersecurity hacker who was responsible for busting 3,000 cases of illegal content seized on people's computers by infiltrating them. And finally, 4 children tracked down a 97-year-old dementia patient after she went missing for a day by traveling around their neighborhood route and ultimately finding her. You love to see it.
কি হইছে বলতো? আর বলিস না, তোরে যে বুকিং দিছে সে তখন আমার পিছনে লাগছে।
দিশান আমার দরজা লাগিয়ে দিচ্ছে। আমার দরজা লাগিয়ে দিচ্ছে। কই যায়? কই যা?
আমরা তো বিয়েই দিয়ে দিবে বাসা থেকে।
মাম্মা লাভ স্টোরি তো শুরু করে দিলা। ভালো ভালো ভালো। মালটারে কি পড়ানো যায়?
তুমি একটা কাম কর, আজকে থেকে আমি তোমার, তুমি আমার, ব্যাস ডিসিশন ফাইনাল, বুকিং দিয়ে রাখলাম। ঠিক আছে? কি খবর তোমাদের? কেমন আছো তোমরা সবাই? ভালো তো না? তুমি জানো তোমার কালকে তো কতবার কল দিছি।
হ্যালো, আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
কি রে? এদাই। রহিন, মানা করতেছি। কিছু না কিছু। ভাবি আপনি জানেন আমি একবার অসুস্থ হয়ে গেছিলাম। ও আমাকে রক্ত দেয়নি। আর আজকে আপনাকে রক্ত দিয়ে চিঠি লিখছে।
কালকে সারা রাত তোমার আমি কল দিচ্ছি।
সারা রাত? তাহলে আপনি শুনুন আপনার ভালোবাসার মানুষের অতীত বর্তমান।
পাগল কোন একদম ঠিক হয় ওনার ব্যথা লাগে নাই?
ব্যথা তো বেশি তুমি।
তুহিনে ব্যথা লাগছে মানে?
বন্ধু তুই চিন্তা করিস না রে, ভাবির মন ঠিকই গলে যাবে।
ভাবির মন তো গলবে কিন্তু
আরে না না না, দোস্ত 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 সম্ভব না। গাড়ি ঘুরা তো।
হঠাৎ আমার বাসার নিচে কোনো জরুরি দরকার?
তুমি কি আজকে কোচিং এ যাও নাই? সুন্দর মতো যাবি, ভাবির নামটা জিজ্ঞাসি। আর শুন, ভালো মতো কথা কবে, ভাবি লাগে। খালি থাপড় আর চাপাবাজি, এই বাদে আর কিছু পারছস? বুকিং মানে বুকিং, তুমি আমার আমি তোমার, বুকিং দিয়ে দিছি ফাইনাল।
আমাকে বুকিং দিছে মানে আমাকে কে বুকিং দিছে দোস্ত?
তোর যে আশিক আছে না, এখন তো আমার পিছনে লাগছে।
আমার তো অনেক ভয় লাগতেছে দোস্ত। এই যে আস্তে আস্তে সব মানুষ জানবে, তারপর আমার ফ্যামিলিকেও জানাই দিবে। আর আমার
এন্ড বেস্ট অফ লাক ফর ডক্টরশিপ। আমি দোয়া করি তুমি যেন একজন ভালো ডক্টর হও।
আমার কাছে জিনের বাচ্চার নাম্বার আছে। জিনের বাচ্চা
করতে চাস নাকি ইটিস পিটিস করতে চাস? বদতমিজ।
হ্যালো বন্ধু,
আমার রোদে দিছস?
এই তো দিছি তো।
ঠিক মতো রোদে দিছস?
কি শুনতে চান? আমি আপনাকে ভালোবাসি।
ফোন দিয়ে যেতেছি, ফোনই ধরো না, তোমার ফোন ধরার কোনো নামই নাই। কোনো কথা, তোমার ফোন ধরো না কেন?
এবারে এক্সামের প্রিপারেশন কিরকম তোদের? আমি তো খুবই এক্সাইটেড, কারণ আমার প্রিপারেশন খুবই ভালো।
জিসান দরজা খোল।
কি বুঝতেছি না। সুন্দর মতো যাবি, ভাবির নামটা জিজ্ঞাসি। আর শুন, ভালো মতো কথা কবে, ভাবি লাগে। খালি থাপড় আর চাপাবাজি, এই বাদে আর কিছু পারছস? বুকিং মানে বুকিং, তুমি আমার আমি তোমার, বুকিং দিয়ে দিছি ফাইনাল।
আমাকে বুকিং দিছে মানে আমাকে কে বুকিং দিছে দোস্ত?
তোর যে আশিক আছে না, এখন তো আমার পিছনে লাগছে।
এই এই দুলাভাই সামনে থাকলে যে সালাম দিতে হয়, আপনি শিখাই নাই তোরা? কেমন আছো তুমি?
ভালো।
আমাকে জিজ্ঞেস করবো না? রক্তটা দিবি তুই?
আমি কেন রক্ত দেবো? প্রেম খরচ তুই, রক্ত।
আমার বন্ধু জিসান আপনাকে অনেক ভালোবাসি ভাবি। আপনার ওর রক্ত যাওয়াটা বিধে হতে দিবেন না ভাবি।
How many free samples can you get at Costco? So Costco is known for their various free sample stations floating around the store, and so I wanted to see how much I could get before they cut me off, and so I found a sweet-looking older woman and began the quest. She was serving Brazilian cheese bread, which I didn't even know existed prior to this, and after trying one and seeing how good it tasted, I knew we had our target. I interacted with her, and she actually encouraged me and my cameraman to take 2, bringing our total to 4. I swung back naturally just a few minutes later, acting as if it was in my path again, and took another 2, bringing the total to now 6. It was here where I decided to put a package of these samples into my cart to showcase my willingness to buy it so she didn't think I was taking advantage of the situation. And this ended up being a great idea because when we came back, she was excited to see that we were buying them, and she gave me 4 more, even physically putting them now in my hand. Sitting at 10 now, I asked her about the policy, and she said that you can really get unlimited, but I was still unsure if this was true. So I went back again to get my 11th and 12th with no issue, and then I went back one more time 5 minutes later, getting my 13th and 14th, and once more for 15th, marking the end of my free samples because I was convinced that you could really get as many as you want from Costco. So now you know.